Thank you, Steve. This is a nice introduction. A little short, but nice. My name is Paul, and I'm an adult husband of a grateful member of Al-Anon. I knew there were a lot of Al-Anons in here even before the countdown. I could feel the vibrations, and I hadn't even stood up yet. And I've never been to a Roundup where they made the Al-Anon so welcome. I think that's terrific. I think that's great. I do. You act like you didn't think you believed me. And I go to Al-Anon every Monday. In fact, I'm in charge of the literature. I'm in charge of the literature, and for 1 month we made the coffee, by God, and it was the best coffee they've had in a long time. And I noticed when he talked about length of time on Al-Anon, he didn't mention birthdays, and indeed, when Drew opened the Al-Anon meeting this afternoon, she said Al-Anons don't celebrate birthdays, and I don't know why that is, but I've heard it said that it's because they can't go that long between slips. Of course, I'd never say anything like that myself. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. You should never laugh at the Al-Anons. You really shouldn't. Our book speaks very kindly of them. Says that they're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. Anyway, I know there's no people either as individuals or as a group. There's nobody who is more anxious to see us make it than they do. And indeed, I love Al-Anon, and in fact, when you were having people stand up for recognition, I was thinking you ought to ask the alcoholics who are in a relationship with another alcoholic and going crazy, but refuse to go to Al-Anon to stand up. Me go to Al-Anon? I'm an alcoholic, you know. As if that makes you high class to be alcoholic. One step up when you become an alcoholic. I want to welcome the new people, and I'm glad you're here. And I know you're not glad, but that's all right. We're all glad you're here. We don't care whether you're happy or not. And, matter of fact, if you're just thrilled to death and you think this is just wonderful, and you're really home at last, and you just can't imagine doing anything but coming to AA the rest of your life, oh, God, we may not be able to help you. But if you hate the whole idea, you're in the right place. Keep coming back. You might as well, because there's no place else to go. And you just ruined your reputation anyhow. So anyway, that's the way that goes. And we're glad whether you're glad or not. And speaking of being, like Bill said, he hated to see people stand, and I always feel bad, too, about the people standing. And then I think, well, what the hell, I've got to stand. I always like, this is my favorite group of alcoholics. When you get more alcoholics than will fit in a room, that's the best kind of a meeting of alcoholics. Doesn't matter the size of the room, just so it's too small. I mean, alcoholics jammed together generate energy. And as a matter of fact, they were talking about all the people that have done all the work to put this great event together, and including even last year with Ted and with the hotel and all the energy that everybody's put into the thing. And that's all true, and it all pays off, and you can see that it does. But there's one thing over which they have no control, and yet it's probably as important as anything they do. And that's our attitude. Our attitude. And this Roundup has a tremendous attitude. It's just you can feel the love in all through it. Give yourselves a hand. That's the sort of thing that makes this thing grow. And somebody once said AA stands for Altered Attitudes, and I almost fell out of my chair the day I heard them say that. Because I always saw in the theory that I knew that your attitude was a reflection of what was going on in your life. I didn't know I had a choice of attitude, and indeed I find that I have a choice. I don't not only have a choice. At every moment of every day, I am exercising a choice as to what my attitude is. But the point was, until I knew I had a choice, I didn't have a choice. You don't have a choice if you don't know you have a choice. And I just screwed up the rest of your life, because now you know that if you're not having a good time, it's your own damn fault. You know. In fact, I was at just last week. We were at Sober Club Med, 200 sober alcoholics, and Club Med knocks themselves out, giving you everything they can to have a wonderful time, have a good time. And I got this idea that maybe even there, it's your attitude that determines whether or not what they do works. And so I'd love to, since I found this out about attitude and how important it is, and we do have a choice, I love to go around in the mornings particularly and ask people, are you going to have a good day today? And people are divided into two groups, those who are on the program and those who aren't on the program. And those who aren't don't even know what you're talking about. I went up to one of the gals, the staff gals that works at Club Med, and I said, are you going to have a good day today? And she said, well, it depends, you know. And she couldn't even get the concept that she could have had a choice. It depended on what's going to happen. And later on, I saw another one of the staff gals, and I said, are you going to have a good day today? She says, I have to work today. See? I asked the third one. I said, are you going to have a good day today? She says, why? Don't I look like I've been having a good day? Yeah. I don't want to fight about it, lady. I just want to... So anyway, the idea is to have a good day. And I enjoy AA, and I enjoy this way of life. And I'm glad I have it. I'm glad to be an alcoholic. I thought that becoming an alcoholic would be the worst possible thing that could ever happen to a nice guy like me. And it's turned out to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't even know what's good or bad for me. It's turned out to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. I just love this way of life. And I am glad to be an alcoholic because I love this way of life enough that I'm glad to be an alcoholic, because I can't imagine being very thrilled with this way of life if I weren't an alcoholic. Or a reasonable facsimile thereof, or in some way involved in alcoholism. In fact, I admire people who aren't alcoholic who are willing to do the things. I mean, write out every fool thing you never wanted anybody to know about yourself, and write it out so somebody may find it, and then go and tell it all to some blabbermouth who probably will tell people. I found that very, very frightening the first time I did that. In fact, I remember my first fourth step. I was afraid that having it around the house, that Max or the kids would find it. And so I thought, well, I'll carry it with me. And then I thought, well, no, I might have an automobile accident, and that stupid nurse in the emergency room will find it. And so I couldn't leave it at home, and I couldn't carry it with me. So I wrote it in code. I can't read code, but I can write code, you know. Anyhow, I had trouble doing the steps all the way through them. But anyway, I enjoyed being an alcoholic. And surprising that I enjoy it too, in the sense that it never occurred to me that it would be a good idea to come to AA. In fact, I didn't even have to come. I mean, I didn't have a nudge from the judge or get well card from the judge or any of that stuff. I wasn't forced to come. I could have stayed there in the nut ward. It's just that the only way I could get off the nut ward, get a pass to get off the nut ward, was to get a pass to go to an AA meeting. And in fact, I didn't like it there on the nut ward. They had a lot of strange things going on there. I never did quite figure out what was going on the nut ward. They had a schedule, and they wrote down, and you could see it, but I would look at that, and then I think, I wonder what I'm supposed to do. And they kept nagging at me, trying to get me to make leather belts. They really had a thing about leather belts. They try to convince me that my life would be improved if I learned how to make leather belts. I'd gone to school a lot of years, and I'd gone to a lot of lectures and a lot of seminars. I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of brilliant men, and then for somebody to tell me that my life would be improved if I learned how to make, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand the philosophy, and besides, I didn't understand the instructions. And But that was the fault of that dumb occupational therapist, because I've always had a theory that if you don't understand a thing well enough so you can explain it to me so that I understand it, then you don't really understand it as well as you think you do. And she had already explained it to me 3 times, and I wasn't going to embarrass her by asking her a 4th time. And I found it boring on the nut ward. In fact, I couldn't figure out how a nice guy like me got in a place like that. And I remember sitting there commiserating with myself, thinking, what's a nice guy like me do? Well, I was thinking of a series of mistakes and misunderstandings. See, I had a brain tumor, and they'd missed it. And in fact, it occurred to me the other day that AA, not only took care of my alcoholism, it took care of my brain tumor. And I was thinking of the misdiagnoses and the poor medical management and the poor judgment and the things that have ended up with a nice guy like me ending up in a place like that. And as I was thinking that, this dumb psychiatrist who couldn't see that my problems were marital walked up behind me and asked me, would I mind talking to a man from Alcoholics Anonymous? And I thought, God almighty, Doc, don't I have enough problems of my own without trying to help some drunk from AA? I didn't know anything about alcoholism, didn't want to know anything about alcoholism, didn't even like alcoholics, and was afraid if I ever started treating them, they'd all be coming to me. That's all I'd have would be a bunch of drunks coming to me. They never pay their bills anyway, and they don't keep their appointment when they have one, and when they want to come in, they want to come in as an emergency. And I didn't want to be bothered with drunks, but I could tell by the look on his face that he thought it was a good idea. And boy, if you're ever on a nut ward, you'll quickly come to realize that happiness on a nut ward is having a happy psychiatrist. They have a certain amount of control over your life, and because he thought it was a good idea, I decided it was a good idea, and I said okay, and in no time this clown comes galloping into the room yelling, hi, my name is Frank, and I'm an alcoholic, I was really embarrassed for him. I thought, my God, the only thing in life this guy has to brag about is he's an alcoholic. I was embarrassed. I was more impressed when I found out later he was, excuse the expression, an attorney. And the only thing I remember about his story was that it was interminable. It just went on and on and on. You know, he was an attorney, and he gave me all the fine print and everything else, and went on and on and on. The only thing I remember was it ended up, finally, by him saying, well, that's my story. I'm going to a meeting tonight. Would you like to go along? And I remember saying, hell no. Hell no, I won't like it, but I'll go, because I figure you go back and squeal to that dumb psychiatrist. And he would have, and I went. And who was it today? Was it you or Somebody was saying all about their first meeting, as to who led and who read and what they said and all the profundities. They remembered everything about their first meeting. I've heard some wonderful talks about people's first meeting. Not mine. I don't remember anything about my first meeting. I don't even know how many meetings I went to before I knew what meeting I was at. But I do know it had a profound effect. It really had a profound effect on the psychiatrist. He was thrilled to death. And he wanted to know all about AA. He wanted to know all about it. What's this about a book? What's this about steps? What other kind of meetings do they have? What goes on at the meetings? All these questions. I thought, my God, I've got me an alcoholic psychiatrist. He's ashamed to go, and he's sending me, and I wondered, how many meetings am I going to have to go to before I can get him sober? So I went to all the meetings I could, and I told Frank I wanted to go to every night, and Frank was very good about it, except he wasn't so sure about Friday night. He thought maybe Friday night he might have a date with Carolyn. And I thought, that's a crummy way to run an organization. And I reported him to the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist got another attorney named Nelson to take me on Friday, and got to enough meetings, and finally got my discharge button. And the interesting thing about that psychiatrist was that I thought he was, and it's one of many, many examples of the real power of this program. The real power of this program. I love to hear stories. I love drunk-a-logs, because I love to hear about somebody's drunk every day for 35 years and end up going to AA, and with the first meeting, from then on they never drink again. And the power of this program. And it's that sort of thing with this psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is not an alcoholic. I know him well, and every year on my birthday I send him a note and tell him that I'm doing fine. And one of the smartest things he ever did was to send me to AA. And he always writes back and says, I know. And he's always glad to watch what I'm doing with my sobriety. But he's not an alcoholic. What happened was, when he was going to take his training as a psychiatrist, somebody got the idea that he would make a better psychiatrist if he went to 2 or 3 AA meetings. And he went to the meetings just to see what they were like. And he was so impressed with what he saw and heard at those AA meetings that now that's his favorite thing to do as a psychiatrist. To run around with his butterfly net and capture alcoholics, and send them off to AA. And he won't try to do for them what AA can do better, he says. And well, to finish that story, I tell this all the time, but I'll tell it again. One year I was at a meeting of international doctors in AA. It sounds very highfalutin, but it's just a bunch of drunk doctors staying sober in AA. And we have a convention, so we can charge it off as a business expense. And we had a panel. There were 4 of us doctors on this panel. And 3 of the 4 of us had been captured by this one psychiatrist. And the 4th one of us had been captured by one of the 3 of us. And at that particular time, all 4 of us were working full-time in the field of alcoholism. So it's impossible to estimate even how many alcoholics have been touched by this 2 or 3 meetings that this one non-alcoholic psychiatrist had gone to. This is a very potent thing that we fool around with, and I'm glad it is that way. And anyhow, so where do we go from there? We got the psychiatrist taken care of. So I would go on to meetings. I went to enough meetings to get enough brownie points to get discharged from the hospital. I had no intention of continuing to go back to them because I wasn't even an alcoholic anyhow. And but the problem was that Max liked the meetings. Yourself. There's an Al-Anon sitting right there, I can tell you. And of course, once I found out she liked him, I would use that against her. When she wouldn't behave and do what I told her, then I would decide I wasn't going to meetings anymore. and she would stay home. And I don't think she did that more than a couple of times. And then she did something she couldn't do. She got in the car and drove all the way from Anaheim down to Laguna Beach and went to the meeting by herself. She can't even drive that far. She can't use the freeway, and I don't know how she got there, but she would go down and go to the meetings all by herself. Have you ever tried that? Have you ever tried staying home on a Saturday night drinking while your non-alcoholic spouse is off laughing it up at an AA meeting? Yeah. I found it boring, and I had to go back to the meetings to find out what she was doing. And what she was doing was laughing. And I went there and I saw those alcoholics laughing. They laughed at everything. They laughed at anything. And they laughed at all kinds of things. They laughed at things they ought to be ashamed of. And they even laughed at their drinking, for God's sake. And I was embarrassed for them, but one day I found myself laughing, and I haven't had a drink since. And that was 7 months after I first went to AA. I wasn't alcoholic, and didn't become an alcoholic until I'd been coming to meetings for 7 months. It's not very funny. It's a contagious. Alcoholism is a contagious disease. I was taught that you get alcoholism by drinking alcohol. That's not true. You get drunk drinking alcohol. But you don't get alcoholism from alcohol. You get alcoholism from other alcoholics. It's a contagious disease. It's a virus. And the virus affects your brain, and it goes in through your ears. And you think it's funny, but if you're here tonight and you're not really an alcoholic, you want to be very, very careful what you listen to. I would suggest you keep your mind wide open. Leave it wide open, so whatever goes in goes right on through. Because if an idea stops there and you think, oh my God, I did something like that and I felt like that when I did, you suppose I might be a boom just like that. You're an alcoholic. Once you suspect it, it's too late. You've already got it. Then there's no use saying anything to these people. They'll just laugh and say, oh, we got another one. They love to infect people. You'd think they got brownie points for everybody they talked and infected with their disease. And that's what happened to me. When I got it, it was just I was hardly alcoholic at all. And I thought, I don't want this. I thought, I'll give it to somebody else. That just made it worse. I mean, the more you give it away, the more you got it. And the more you come to meetings and listen to this stuff, the worse it gets. You keep reinfected. They say it's a progressive disease when you're out there drinking, and it is. But it's progressive when you're sober. I mean, I'm much more alcoholic tonight than I was when I first became an alcoholic back in July of 1967, when I became an alcoholic. I was just a little bit alcoholic. Hardly alcoholic at all. I mean, it was very mild alcoholic of a mild kind of alcoholic. And in fact, I was not what you would call a drunkard, or a chronic inebriate, or a dipsomaniac, or I wasn't even a wino. I loved Thunderbird, but I wasn't a wino. And I wasn't a lush, and I certainly wasn't a Skid Row bum. I was more allergic to alcohol. I'm allergic to alcohol. I react peculiarly to the drug alcohol. I react peculiarly to that. I can't drink socially, sanely, sensibly. I can't drink worth a damn, as a matter of fact. Alcohol does all kinds of funny things to me. For one thing, alcohol makes me thirsty. Anybody else, they want to drink, they take a drink and they drink it. They're not thirsty. In fact, they may not even finish it. Waste it. Yeah. When I want to drink, every drink tastes the same. Tastes like one more. This drink isn't going to do it, but the next one probably will. And I always want one more drink, one more. Alcohol makes me thirsty, and it also gives me a change of personality. I don't have any problems with that either, because I've always been around drugs, medication since I was 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, my father, without even asking my opinion, gave up his job as a druggist in Canton, Ohio, and he bought a house drugstore combination in Alliance, Ohio, and I literally grew up in a drugstore. And my father was what they called in those days a counter-prescriber. And when I was old enough to go to pharmacy school, they sent me off to pharmacy school so I could become a counter-prescriber like my father and run the family drugstore. And I didn't really care much for being a druggist, though. People didn't seem to treat me very nice for being a druggist. They weren't very impressed with my pharmacy degree. They weren't nearly as impressed as I was. And I thought they'd be more impressed if I had a medical degree. But my family didn't want me to be a physician. They wanted me to stay home and work in the family drugstore. Besides, it was the Depression. There was no money to send me to medical school. So my answer was to marry the girl next door and suggest that she work my way through medical school. And she did, and I did. And people weren't very impressed with me having a medical degree. And I thought, well, they'll be more impressed if I have a specialty degree. So I said, well, you're doing a good job, kid. You keep working, and we'll get us a specialty degree. And she did, and I did. And I specialized in internal medicine. And in internal medicine, that's what you do. You're a diagnostician. No matter what's wrong with people, you do a history and a physical, some lab work, and you give them a diagnosis. People come to the doctor for two things. Two things they want. One of them. Sometimes I talk shorthand. One of them is they want to know. They ask the question, "What's my problem, doc?" And they want a diagnosis. So you give them a diagnosis. You say, well, you got ichthyosis. They say, I got ichthyosis. Then they ask the other question, what are you going to give me for it, doc? And they always want a diagnosis. They want a prescription. So you give them a pill, a prescription. And that was what I did. I always, no matter what was wrong with you, I could give you a diagnosis, and I could give you a pill for it. I had a pill for every ill. And I was good at that. In fact, Max and I one day. Max worked in the office with me for 25 years. I thought letting her work in the office for free was the least I could do, since she had worked my way through medical school. We built up a very big practice, and very ethical practice, in that even had my own version of the Hippocratic Oath, in that I never ever gave a patient a pill that I hadn't first tried out on myself. People say, and I know this is an AA function, and you're supposed to talk about alcohol, and I respect that, but I do have to make some mention of pills, because they, for example, amphetamines, I think they deserve a certain honorable mention in that I don't know that I would have had the stamina to have completed my pre-AA training period if it hadn't been for the amphetamines. But I don't want to talk about being a pillhead or a dope fiend, because I never became addicted to pills. And what do you mean, ha, ha, ha? I never became addicted. You ask any doctor, and they'll tell you, the only way you can become addicted to a pill is to abuse them. Yeah, you ask the doctor, and they say, well, but I'll tell you two things. So one thing they'll say is none of their patients ever get hooked on pills. But patients who do get hooked on pills, they get hooked on them because they abuse the pills. I have never abused a pill in my life. In fact, I don't even know how to abuse the pill. How do you abuse the pill? You throw it up against the wall, you stomp on the thing, verbally abuse it. You dirty, rotten little pill, why don't you do it? Actually, they were very tiny little pills. I mean, you could tell they were very weak. And I was very, very respectful of my pills. I carried my pills in that little pocket inside the big pocket. That's the pill pocket. Okay, you can't carry pills just anywhere. I used to put them over with my change, and people would say, "You got change for $1?" I say, "Oh yes." And you go like that. And they say, "Oh, you carry Nebutol around in the daytime." So I put it over with my keys. Then you go out and you get in your car, you take your keys out of your pocket, a Quaalude runs down the street. And the damn thing always runs faster than you can run, And you can't stomp on it or you'll abuse it. But I am not a pillhead, and I never, ever, ever, ever took a pill unless I had the symptom. Unless I had the symptom that only that pill would relieve. I either had it or I could feel it coming on. So every pill I ever took was medically indicated at the time, and taken according to directions and prescribed by a doctor. But the point is that of all the pills I've ever known, I've never known any medication, any pill of any kind, that didn't have side effects. Every medicine is the same. Physician's desk reference, PDR. Many of you have copies, I'm sure. It's a very well-read book. It's probably right next to your big book. We'll have to look that up, see what that'll do. Meanwhile, give me one. I'll try it and see. The book is full of side effects that medications have. Every medication is the same in that everybody reacts exactly the same to every medication except for those people who react different. And to me, and alcohol is just like that. It's everybody, 9 out of 10 people that drink alcohol react to it one way, and they're called social drinkers. And not 1 out of 10 react differently, and they're alcoholics. And I'm one of those that reacts differently. Very differently. And as I say, one of the things about it is it makes me thirsty, and so that I can't drink. I can't drink because bad things happen to me when I drink, and yet I can't not drink. I'm powerless over what happens to me when I drink it, and I'm powerless of myself. I can't keep from drinking it. That's called a dilemma. What it means is that without AA, you're screwed. But with AA, I don't really have that much of a problem with not drinking. I mean, all I have to do, I've gone through all the steps. I was just thinking the other day, how many times have I gone through, really done the 4th and 5th step, for example? And the last time was a year ago. I've done it about 6 times. And I've run into a lot of people who have been sober 6, 7, 8 years, and now the program's just kind of loosened its spice. Their sponsor has moved away, or they've moved away from their sponsor, and they haven't gotten anybody else, and they're not really sponsoring anybody right now, and they're not going to as many meetings because they have to spend more time with their family and being more. And these different things are happening. And I find out that people don't resign from AA. It seems to me that they just drift away. I think more people leave AA from boredom than anything else. And I find a lot of people need to redo the steps, start over as a newcomer and do all the things that worked in the beginning. And I've had to do that a number of times myself. But anyway, having a sponsor, doing the steps, reading the book, talking a lot, that's my form of service. I'd rather do that than sit on a committee or whatever. And that's it. I don't really have any problems with not drinking today because the drink is not an option. It's just not an option. To take a pill in order to sleep is not an option. To use it. I have given up my right to chemical peace of mind. So the chemicals is just not an option anymore. So as long as I do all these things and that's not an option, it's not hard for me to keep from taking a chemical. It doesn't even occur to me to do it. I don't even think of it. But I do think. And as a matter of fact, I have a dual problem. I have a drinking problem and I have a thinking problem. And even when I'm not drinking, I'm busy thinking. And I get to thinking that I might have a problem. And then all I have to do is think about the problem, and I don't even have to work on the problem to make it get worse. All I have to do is think about it. I can take any problem and just think about it and watch it grow. The more I think about it, the more I realize this really is quite a problem. And I can take any little, in fact, I don't even have to start with a problem. I can start with a non-problem. Well, hell, that's no problem. I don't know why anybody would bother about that. Oh, I suppose if you thought about it enough, it could be a little bit of a problem. Yeah. I get to thinking about it, and the more I think about it, I think, that really is kind of a problem. And the more I think about it, the more it gets bigger and bigger it gets, and pretty soon I'm thinking, my God, it's a good thing I'm looking at this. Yeah. Everybody else is missing it, Yeah. And people can't even help you much with a problem like that. They tell you dumb things like, well, don't think about it. I don't know how to not think about something I'm obsessed with. I have found that if I think I've never ever thought I had a problem and been wrong. If I think I have a problem, I have a problem. And I alone determine the size of my problems. If I think it's a big problem, it's a big problem. If I think it's a little problem, it's just a little problem. I don't have many little problems. Don't bother with them. It's like resentments. I don't bother with any but the justifiable ones. But I find that my thinking determines my life. It's not what happens to me that matters, it's what I think about what happens that matters. And I think a lot. And that's where I get into most of my problems. But one of the ways that I don't know how you think, but I think by somebody talking to me. Somebody saying things to me. I don't know whether it's happening to you now or not, but it's happening to me up here. And these people in my head are chattering back and forth. They're arguing about what I ought to say next. They even get to say, tell them this, tell them this. No, don't tell them that. Tell them what I want to tell them. And they get arguing back and forth among themselves. And it's hard for me to focus on what I'm saying. And they're talking. You think there's a lot of confusion in the room or out there? You ought to listen to the noise in my head. And I get the feeling, oh, shut up there. And that startles them, and they all shut up. And I can't think of anything to say. And actually, what it is, my life is determined by the chatter in my head. It's determined by who and what I listen to of the chatter in my head. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had choices. But I have a choice. I'm constantly exercising a choice, whether I realize it or not, of who I listen to in my head. I used to listen to the one that says, well, we need a drink. That when they said, we need a drink, I thought that was kind of like an order from God to go get a drink or something. But I hear in fact, when I listen carefully, they say a lot of ridiculous, sometimes lewd, and very often illegal things. Some of the things that they suggest are really stupid. And I used to argue about them and feel bad about them. Now I just say, well, thank you for participating. Now if you'll sit down, we'll call on somebody else. And I can pick and choose who I want to listen to. And it's kind of like when my thinking, whatever I think about, my mind is energy factory, and it puts energy out into whatever I think about, like in a laser beam or a searchlight. And I have to be very careful what I focus it on, because it has a tendency to move around and focus on things when I'm not looking. And whatever it focuses on, that becomes magnified. In fact, for instance, have you ever sat down and written a gratitude list? And at the end of the list, you feel much more grateful. It's because you've been thinking of gratitude. Talking spirituality. The more you think about it and talk about it, when it's a subject in a meeting, you become more spiritual. Having a bad day. Having a real bad day, go to a meeting. It's a lousy meeting. Didn't really feel like you got anything out of it. But when you get through, you feel better. Because instead of thinking about the problems, you're living in the answer for an hour and a half. It's whatever we focus our attention on, that grows. And that's the way it is with the voices in my head. It depends on who I listen to. We were talking about relationships today, and getting along with Max. And I have in my head, there's one personality. Each personality has their one pet thing that they focus on and talk about all the time. And one of them has devoted his life to keeping his eye on Max and watching to see what she's doing and reporting to me. And he's always finding the negative. So, did you hear what she just said about you? Yeah. Or did you notice what she's doing now? You realize she's not doing what you told her to do? All these stuff. She's always telling me these things, trying to get me upset about Max. And the more I focus on listening to that voice, the worse our relationship becomes. And I found there's another one up there that does the same thing, focuses on her, but he says the positive. And he loves to tell me things like, isn't she terrific? Doesn't she have a great sense of humor? Isn't she attractive? Isn't it nice that she kept going to AA meetings even when you didn't go? And I'm always pointing out that, aren't you lucky to have her? It's just a question of who I focus on, who I listen to. Because whoever I listen to the most, the more I listen to them, the more they move to the front of the room, and the more they talk. And the less I listen to them, the more they think, well, screw you, and they drift toward the back of the room and don't say much. The one who's always saying, well, let's have a drink, he's still up there. But I haven't heard his voice in a long time. He's in the back of the room, but I know he's there. I know he's there. Nobody ever leaves permanently. And so I just have to be careful who I listen to and how much focus on. One of the things about that, too, that I've become very aware of is that in the center of that area of chatter and noise, in the very, very center of me, there's a center of calm. And that's where my higher power is. It's been very significant to me to find that out, that my higher power resides within me. And I don't have to go someplace to find him. In fact, if I don't take him with me when I go there, he's not there when I get there. My higher power resides within me, and that's very comforting to me. I used to fight in order to stay asleep, and I used to be terribly afraid that I wouldn't get a good night's sleep. Now I find it's not uncommon for my higher power to nudge me awake because he wants to talk. And we have an increasingly closer and closer relationship because of him, me realizing he's with me there. And indeed, one of the things I enjoy doing is in talking to another alcoholic, another program person, to see if my higher power can connect with their higher power inside them. along that line, it's been a while now, a few months back, I was at a convention in San Diego, and the gal was closing the thing, a couple thousand people, and she said, at the end of the meeting, when we all stand up to say the Lord's Prayer and hold hands, instead of looking at the floor or closing your eyes, why don't you look in the eyes of the other alcoholics or the other people in the room? And I have found that very spiritual. I enjoy doing that. And when I'm talking to another program person and my higher power connects with theirs, it's a real meaningful conversation for me. Anyway, I have my own theory as to what makes an alcoholic. And my theory, and even if I'm wrong, don't tell me. I don't want to know about it. But I'm hardly ever wrong. My feeling is that an alcoholic is a person who, whether they want to or not, and perhaps even more so if they don't want to, but whether they want to or not, they generate a great deal of love, but lack the ability to express love. And that, they generate it, can't express it, builds up like pressure in a tea kettle, becomes very uncomfortable. They drink and use drugs to suppress the feelings. Seems to help, but it makes it worse because it compounds the communication problem. So it keeps getting worse and worse. Even more so, not only can't express love, but we can't accept love, can't receive love. So that the people who love us can't express their love either. End up with essentially the same problem. And the pressure builds up and becomes more and more uncomfortable. And they can't do anything with it, can't express love. So it has to come out. So it comes out not as love, but as anger, resentment, hostility, frustration, violence, maybe, negative emotions. Again, which doesn't really cure the problem, it only makes it worse because it compounds the communication problem. Nothing you can do about a problem like that. You end up at the very bottom of the thing, you end up going to AA, Al-Anon. What do we do with newcomers in AA and Al-Anon? As I see it, we love the hell out of them. We literally love the hell out of their hellish situations. And we teach them how to be loving. Just by, we don't call it that, that's embarrassing. But we show them, we make them feel important. Make them feel important. Because they are important. They are important. In fact, a lot of times I don't think newcomers realize how important they are. We call them the lifeblood of the organization without them knowing really. When I was new, I thought, well, that's just a poetic way of getting me to keep coming back, I guess. But the way I see it, there are 3 points to this thing. Alcoholism is a disease. Alcoholism is a medical problem, has a spiritual answer. It's on the boards up here. This is a terrific display. We have a medical problem, a spiritual answer, and 3, we have to give that away to other alcoholics, and we have to give it away in order to keep it. If we don't give it away, we can't keep it. The more we give it away, the more we got it. And that's why we need the newcomers and people that come here. And that's an act of love, to have an active concern for somebody else's welfare. Somebody said to me today, what's your definition of love? And I quoted Don Chi, who said love is an active concern for somebody else's welfare. Which reminded me, Max was complaining this morning that people initially used to call her Pauline, because they didn't know her. They knew her name was, they thought it was Maxine, or ended in E, and my name was Paul, so they called her Pauline, and she hated it. And she makes it kind of happy now when people call me Max. And I knew it would make her happy when I walked through the hall today, and the guy said, "Oh, I liked your talk this morning, Max." And a little earlier, Susan said she had one more book she wanted me to sign. She says, "One more book, Max." And So people are calling me Max. I hope you're very happy. But I used to wonder, what is love? I don't like the expression, what is love? And I had asked different people what it was. And I remember Chuck C. used to say, love is doing something for free and for fun, expecting nothing in return. Expecting nothing in return. If you expect anything in return, it's not love, it's barter. Pretty harsh rule, I thought. Well, I like the definition. Somebody said love is making the other person feel important. That was what was making me think of that. When we do that with a newcomer, we make them feel important. We do that with each other. When we remember each other's names and smile and things like that, which I can't do because I got dysnomia. But when we make the other person feel important, and I decided I could do that with Max, that would be one way I could show her my love for her would be to make her feel important. How to do that? I thought, well, Max likes to wake up to... No, actually, Max hates to wake up. But when she does wake up, she likes to wake up to a hot cup of coffee. Not hot coffee. Doesn't like hot coffee. She likes... she hates cold coffee. But she likes hot coffee with 2 ice cubes in it that haven't melded yet. Well, she likes to have, and the reason that's not too much to ask, if they've melded, then she wakes up to a problem. See, she doesn't know whether, did you put the ice cubes in this coffee? She likes to wake up to, when she wakes up to look over to her bedside stand and see this hot cup of coffee with 2 ice cubes that haven't melded yet. And, well, I get up before Max does. Actually, the whole world gets up before Max does. And I take care of Lily and Sabrina. Lily and Sabrina are 2 Ala dogs, and they said to tell you hello. They're kind of ticked off at you because we had to fly to get here, and they can't come with us when we have to fly. But they go to all our meetings, both AA and Al-Anon, when we go by car. They go to a lot of meetings. They go to a lot of meetings. They go to more meetings than a lot of people are trying to stay sober. They have nicer personalities than a lot of people are trying to stay sober. So anyway, I get up and I take care of Little and Sabrina, and I go to my computer and I type my automatic typing as fast as I can. I type a letter to my higher power. I tell him to take this day and do whatever he wants with it. I said, you make happen whatever you want to have happen today. You have come into my life, whoever you want to come into my life. You have them say and do whatever it is you want them to say and do, and whatever happens today and whoever comes into my life and whatever they say and do, I'll know that's your will for me this day. Now you go have a good day today, and I'll have a good day, and I'll check with you tomorrow. And and I also tell him how grateful I am for what a good job he's been doing. And then it's time for the Queen to wake up, and so I go to make her coffee, and she has a certain cup she likes, and she doesn't like brewed coffee. She likes instant coffee. Well, it has to be U-Ban, though. I mean, instant coffee, as long as it's U-Ban. And she doesn't like it too strong. She hates it weak. It has to be level teaspoonful. Just a level teaspoonful in the bottom of the cup. And she hates milk in it, and she doesn't even like cream or mocha mix. So she likes the cream-ora. She likes a lot of that. And there's a lot of that. So, level teaspoonful of U-Ban and 2 heaping teaspoons full of cream-ora. And you put that in the bottom of the cup. And then you don't boil the water. You take the water from a hot water dispenser. Hot water dispenser it has a spigot and it's a tank under the sink, and it dispenses hot water at just the right temperature for putting 2 ice cubes in it. And you have to hire a man to install it. He has to drill a hole about that big in There's a drill a hole about that size in the stainless steel sink that replaced the perfectly good white porcelain sink that was there, and as the hot water's running in, you rotate the cup because you don't want to wet the spoon because you may want another cup and you want to have a dry spoon. So you rotate the cup, and because she doesn't like it if the cake's on the bottom. She really hates that because it's real bitter. You rotate it enough to mix it up, but not so much that it sloshes over the sides, because then it makes the bottom of the thing wet. And you fill it up, but not completely full, because you got to slide in that ice cubes, and you have to slide them in. They don't drop them in. They go, and you go around the bottom. And the bottom of the cup wet. You don't want the bottom of the cup wet. And you carry it in, and don't spill it. And as you're walking into the darkened bedroom, be very careful not to step on her high-heeled shoes. They're very painful when you're in your bare feet. And you have to be particularly careful as you go up along the side of the bed, because those glossy magazines are very slippery. And when you get to your bedside stand, you don't look for a bare spot. You just look for a level spot. And you balance it on whatever level spots you can find, and you turn around and you sneak out of the room. You do not cheat. You do not do anything to wake her up. You just hope that she will wake up before the ice cubes melt. Now that so far, that's the easy part. The hard part is you don't dare hope that she will appreciate it. Because if you want her to appreciate it, like Chuck says, that's not love, that's barter. Yeah. Rather harsh rule, I think. But I have to admit right off that Max is very cooperative. She never appreciates it. Now that is love, I'll tell you. The last time I made her coffee was this morning, and so that's the secret of our being married 53 years, the end of this year. That and acceptance. And we have a rule in our house. When we have problems, we discuss it. I tell my side of it, and she tells her side of it, and we do it Max's way. Let go and let Max is the way. Quickly, Father Barney used to come down from the Seattle area to our area, and he used to talk about sobriety being like a baseball diamond. He said first base was physical sobriety, second base was mental sobriety, third base was emotional sobriety, and home plate was spiritual sobriety. I thought that's great. I like that. And I wondered how I ever got to first base because I didn't know about the spiritual part, and somebody pointed out that you can't get to first base without starting at home plate. And I said, I like that. That's good. And it seems to me I see a lot of people that get to first base and they're afraid to go the rest of the way. Try to steal the other bases. Yeah? And if they're lucky, they may get another chance at bat. And but I find that I'm on that thing. I'm either going one way or the other. I don't stand still. I'm either moving toward a drink or toward more sobriety, further into sobriety. And I am willing to go to any length at all. I'm willing to go to any length at all to maintain my physical sobriety. And the longer I'm sober, the greater and greater lengths I'm willing to go to maintain my emotional sobriety. And closely connected to that is my marital sobriety. I'm willing to give up more and more. Had to give up a lot of things in order to stay physically sober, and I'm willing to give up more and more things to have emotional and marital sobriety. And I have to give Max the right to be wrong, by God. Yeah. But I put a lot of focus on that part of it. And the thing that impresses me so much is that my life started way over here someplace, and it was all the time I was drinking, it was on a downhill course. It wasn't constantly a straight line down, it was up and down. And the ups were up enough to fool me and make me think I was in control. And I couldn't see that when it went down, it was lower than the last time it went down, and that the trend was constantly down. And it continued that way until July 31st, 1967, when I accepted the fact that I, of all people, strange as it might seem, and even though I had nothing to do with it, as far as I knew, I was a mild sort of alcoholic. And at that point, I began to live in the answer instead of in the problem, and I haven't had a drink since that day, and my life has been getting better and better and better. Again, not in a straight line. It's up and down and up and down, but every time it goes up, it's a little higher than it was before it went down the last time. So it just keeps getting better and better. And I find that while alcoholism is a progressive disease, AA recovery is a progressive recovery. It just keeps getting better and better all the time. Each year, this year is better than the year before. Each year keeps getting better and better. And I have to stop and think, why? What the change? Apparently, what happened was I accepted my alcoholism, and my life has changed dramatically. And apparently, acceptance has been the answer to all the things that have happened since then. And why should that be such a problem? And a lot of people want to argue with me about that. And it seems to me that one of the reasons is that acceptance is a word that has two meanings. We live in two worlds. We live in the spiritual world, the world in our heads, the world of AA, and we live in the real world, they call it, the world out there. And out there, acceptance has an entirely different meaning than acceptance in here. I looked it up in Webster. Webster says acceptance is to receive with a consenting mind, with approval, that which is offered. Meaning that if you don't approve of it, don't accept it. I mean, you're going to go buy merchandise. If you don't approve of what you see, don't buy it, dummy. Yeah. Or if you buy it, you get it home, you don't like it, take it back. Tell them about it. If you're going to take a course in surgeon training, that's one of the first things they'll teach you, is how to take back some merchandise you don't really want. They may even have you buy something and take it back anyway, just for practice. But if you don't like it, don't accept it. We're taught that all the way. If you're considered a wimp if you keep stuff that you don't approve of. But in the spiritual world of acceptance, in God's world, it's an entirely different matter. God doesn't even have a complaint department. God doesn't even give a damn, as a matter of fact. I can't imagine one of God's messengers running up to God and saying, "Oh my God, we got a problem. Paul doesn't like the day we're sending him." I can just imagine God saying, "Well, he can go to the devil." That's not part of life. My focus has been is that the more I resist life, the worse it becomes. And the more I accept it, the better it becomes. It was that way with my drinking, and it's been that way with my life, it's that way with my marriage, it's any aspect of my life. The more I resist the way it is, the worse it becomes. The more I accept the way it is, the better it becomes. And I often wonder what happened when I accepted my alcoholism. And as I say, I think I moved from living in the problem to living in the answer. I know I went from living the role of victim. I was always a victim. It was always Max's fault or your fault or somebody's fault, everything that happened. And I've given up the victim role and I moved into the hero role in my own life story. I moved from victim to hero. I know I went from whiner to winner. I feel like a winner in AA today. And I was always a whiner before. Somebody sent me a badge and had the word whiner and then crossed through, like no whining. Yourself. I don't know why the guy sent it to me. No whining. But in fact, I think that's what we do in AA. I think AA is full of winners because we shift from the victim role to the hero role. We give that up and move on to a new thing. In fact, to me, that's the way AA acceptance is. We give up our approach to how we were handling something. We give up approach that isn't working. We stop doing what isn't working. Give that up. We relax. And then we accept somebody else's approach to it. It's like Father Terry used to say, acceptance is a willingness to get well somebody else's way. And anyhow, and it's a willingness to enjoy life, as was pointed out earlier today by Dave, that that's what it's all about. It's part of our program. It's an important part of our program, a very important part of our program. The middle sentence, the very middle sentence on page 132, after you've done all the steps, in the very middle of page 132, it says, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. And it's all a matter of attitude. It's not necessarily happy, 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 but it's joy. There's great joy in this program. Even in memorial services and funerals, there's joy in this program in all aspects of it. And I think that my feeling is, as was pointed out here earlier today, when we die, if we do go to, if there is a pre-admission interview with St. Peter, I think he's not going to, I think my guess is, well anyway, if my higher power is on duty that day, I think the question that will be asked is, what was your general mood? What was your attitude most of the time down there? And ordinarily I would have thought, guilty. He wants me to feel guilty. And I say, no. That's what you were taught, but that isn't what we really want to know. We know, I know that you know that this is a place of happiness, peace, and joy. What you don't know is how we keep it that way. So what was your mood down there? Because if you didn't learn to enjoy life down there, you sure ain't going to learn it up here. And we got a place for people who don't enjoy life. So I say unto you, watch your attitude the rest of this convention, the rest of your life, because your whole eternity may depend on it. Thank you all very much.